Kids' guitars are not a new thing. It's been around for a while. I still remember the three-quarter sized Hannah Montana guitar and the multitude of different SpongeBob guitars that were in the toy stores when I was a kid. And it's still going on to this day. I just saw recently that both Fender and Gibson, the biggest guitar brands in existence, both partnered recently with a company to create guitars specifically for kids. These are three-stringed instruments that look vaguely like the real deal guitars, but specifically for children. And on first glance, this is nothing but a good thing. And it is from certain perspectives. From the company's perspective, they're investing in the future. They're investing in young players now that will turn into customers down the road. And from most other people's perspectives, it's just a way of getting little kids interested in music. And of course, that's a good thing. But I was recently thinking about this, and I was looking back at my childhood and why I got interested in guitar. And I kind of came to the thought process that kids' guitars aren't a good thing. And that seems a bit strange, and feel free to disagree. This is all, of course, opinion, but it's based off my life experience, and I thought I'd share that with you. So you're going to have a lore dump in a minute, but let's start at the very, very beginning. The first thing a newborn baby hears, and consistently hears, is people talking. And they don't understand what the words mean, but there is this core desire to imitate what they see and hear. And that's why little babies start babbling, because all they're seeing is people making noise with their mouth, so they do the same thing. And of course they advance throughout this, and it's a big part of development. And it doesn't stop there. Same reason with learning how to walk. You're copying other people doing it, and you figure it out. And this core primal desire to imitate what we see others do doesn't stop when you enter adolescence. There are multi-billion-dollar industries relying on that fact. You can look at just about anything and it has some reference to copying others. People buy the newest cars because they're trying to copy others who already have it, or designer clothes, or a guitar. You know, you can see it when John Mayer, a new picture of a John Mayer pedal board goes up, suddenly all the pedals on that are in hot demand because people, no matter what, have this core desire to imitate what they see. If you want to see it from the child's perspective, all you really have to do is open up a toy catalogue and you'll see toy strollers and baby dolls because kids want to replicate their parents who are looking after a younger sibling. Or you'll see toy cars because they want to copy people driving. They see everybody driving, but they're just kids. I remember my little sister had a toy kitchen set with a plastic knife and plastic tomatoes that were velcroed together that you could pretend to cut in half and cook, because it's what she saw her parents do every day. It was the desire to copy. Now, I had a great childhood. I had great parents who told me that I could be whatever I wanted to be in life. And the first thing I wanted to be, humble beginnings, I wanted to be a bin truck driver. Or maybe in your vernacular, it's a garbage man. But bin truck driver was what I was always wanted to be when I was very small. I was so small, in fact, I couldn't even say it properly. I couldn't pronounce T's, and I was instead substituting F. So what I was actually saying, if someone asked that question, was I wanted to be a bin driver, which ended up with some funny home movies. But nonetheless, that's what I wanted to be. And of course, I had my little toy bin truck that I'd drive around and pretend that I was doing things. But then, as little kids do, I changed my mind. I wanted to be a cement truck driver. I had a big fascination with cement trucks. I just thought they were cool. And again, I was driving around a little toy cement truck on. Do you remember those like carpet mats that had little roads on them? So I was doing that. But I wasn't quite satisfied, so I changed my mind again. And I wanted to be a builder. I got a toy cement mixer, and I still remember this like it was yesterday. My mom got me some sand, water, and then a pack of sponges so that I could mix the sand and water together to create cement, and then I could do bricklaying but with sponges. And then, again, I changed my mind. This time, I wanted to be an astronaut. Somewhat generic at this point, but you know what? That's what I wanted to be. And I had my toy rocket ship. And at this point, I was probably 8 years old, roughly. And I got into a gifted youth program, and it ended up sending me to DCU, which is Dublin City University, to do astronomy courses. So this was, you could argue, my first glimpse at kind of future, if you will. I was actually doing something, but from my perspective as a kid, I went from a classroom to a classroom. Nothing changed for me. So my interest in all of that again waned, and I changed my mind again. I think I wanted to be a policeman then, and I got my handcuffs, but again, it wasn't real, and I changed my mind again. Now, I've told this part of the story before on the channel, but I saw the movie The School of Rock, and it changed my life forever. It is why I am standing here in front of a whole bunch of guitars. I watched this movie, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I thought the Flying V was the coolest guitar in existence. It was a pivotal moment, and we ended up going to my dad's friend's house, and he had some electric guitars on his couch, one of which was a 70s made in Japan Les Paul copy. And I remember being able to pick it up. I picked it up the wrong way, so I was like a lefty, and just openly strummed with my thumb, and it was the coolest moment. And from then, I wanted a guitar for myself. So I saved up for months, and eventually scraped together enough money to get a guitar. We went down to the local guitar store. I was going to get a starter pack, but they had sold out. So we went to a different place. It was a market, and we weren't sure if it was going to be open, but we went there anyway, and in the back there was a guy who had some guitars. And on the front row of his guitars, there were 4. There was a red one, a white one, a blue one, and a black one. Washburn X Series starter packs. It was in my budget, and I got it. And I remember every detail about that day. I remember the guy who sold it to us, his name was Jerry, and Jerry picked up this guitar, and he said, and it's not too heavy either, and then handed it to me, and it absolutely crushed my leg. And still to this day, I will argue that it absolutely is heavy. This is a heavy guitar, but it is a good guitar. A guitar that I could play happily today. Sure, it needs a little bit of work at this point. It's been in the case for a while, but I'm going to play it right now. But here's the thing, that guitar cost me €160, which is a lot of money when you're 10 years old. It was by far the biggest purchase I was ever making at that point. And it was the first point I think I can remember that my mom was hesitant of me going for something, because she was worried that I was going to do the same thing that I had done with everything previously that I wanted to be. Just abandon it, get bored of it, leave it. And I was thinking about that recently with the whole concept of kids' guitars and everything. And I think I know why I didn't. My toy bin truck and my toy cement truck were toys, and I knew that. I was driving them around on a carpet. I wasn't really doing anything real. And of course I wasn't. I was like 3 or 4. And my sand and water mixture wasn't all that bad when I was making my sponge walls, but I knew I was making sponge walls. It was fun for a time, but nothing ever stayed. It didn't last. The sand dried out and I made it again. And I knew that. And you could argue that I got a taste of reality with the astronomy classes when I wanted to be an astronaut. But from my perspective again, it was a classroom. It was no different from what I was currently doing at 8 years old, which was being in a classroom. The closest I got to flying a rocket ship was Mentos and Coke in a little camera film cap thing. They would explode, and I would do launches with those. But yet again, it wasn't real. Everything I wanted to do and try to replicate, I knew deep down I wasn't doing right. It wasn't reality. It didn't correlate with what I was actually copying. And I think at a basic core level, even as a child, I knew this. That's why I stopped doing it. And when I got this guitar, everything changed, because this guitar is still as real to me then as it is now. This is a real guitar. It's not a kid's guitar. It's a guitar. This meant that I had the keys to replicate what I wanted to replicate with full accuracy. My guitar was just as good as anything else because it didn't have SpongeBob on it. It wasn't 3/4 scale. It was probably a little bit big for me at the time, but I grew into it. And this guitar today is still a guitar. I respect this guitar just as much as any other guitar. It's not a toy. It's not a kid's thing. It was real. And it was my first opportunity to taste reality as a kid. And I think deep down I knew that. It was my first experience of something that wasn't pretend. And because of that, I think I stuck with it. So then when I look and I compare this to some of the kids' guitars that you see, and I very well could have got a kid's guitar in its place, I don't think I would have stuck with it, because those guitars are toys. And while I'm editing this, I think it's also worth mentioning that the kids' guitars that I'm talking about are not priced like toys either. This is a €239 guitar. Remember that mine was 160, and granted that's 16 years ago, but still, this isn't a cheap instrument, or semi-instrument, that we're talking about. Would the neck have been easier to hold with small hands if I got a kid's one? Yeah. Would it be a lot lighter than this absolute boat anchor? Yes. But I don't think I would have stuck with it. So that's really what I wanted to say. I get the concept of if the kid's tiny, sure. But, 8, 9, 10, that kind of age, I think they should get, only if they're interested, a real guitar. Give them a taste of reality. And the reason that I say only if they're interested is because I had a full opportunity to play a guitar when I was about 6 or 7. My dad pulled this out of the attic. This was his old Ibanez custom Les Paul copy. And I didn't care. I had no interest whatsoever. I was too focused on whatever I was into at the time. I still remember him showing this to me, but I also remember just thinking, oh, okay. And I think part of that, again, was also kind of the idea of replication. This was in the attic. I didn't see him playing it or anything, so there was no desire to copy that aspect either. But then once I saw that School of Rock movie, I had something to copy. I had a desire to copy that, and then that progressed into learning about different bands and copying that, and it just went on from there. But at its core, it's that deep down desire to replicate. And I do genuinely believe this. It was my first experience to achieve that primal requirement to replicate what I saw others do. Everything else was pretend replication. And I just think that's kind of a cool thing. And I also think that maybe from the concept of what this video is about, kids' guitars, I don't think they're good. I think they are a way of, sure, if you throw enough of it at the wall, some of it will stick. There will be some kids who will start out on those effectively toys and then graduate onto something else. But there'll be a huge percentage who will have no interest in it whatsoever because they'll lose that. It's just a toy. Get onto something else. So yeah, those are just my thoughts. Feel free to completely disagree. But that's a little bit of history of me playing guitar. And yeah, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, like it. Subscribe if you want to, I suppose. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.